Hey everyone, welcome back. Stephen from Davenport European Martial Arts School. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about trajectory and physiology. And to do that we're going to use three different swords. We're going to be looking at the arming sword, we're going to be using the two-handed sword, the long sword. We're also going to be looking at a one-handed, complex, hilted broadsword called a schiavona. Let's go ahead and get into it. The first sword that we're going to talk about today is the long sword, the hand and a half sword, the great sword, the war sword, lots of different names. The primary manuscript that we study from using this weapon is called Fior di Battaglia. It's an Italian manuscript, and when using this sword, he lists several different cuts, but he doesn't show them. The trajectory is listed in the words, not in the illustrations. So it's described, it's not shown. The cut I want to talk to you about today is called the Mezzana, or the half cut. And this is a cut that in the text says is delivered between the ear and the knee. And the most common description or use of this cut that I see a lot of people doing is a horizontal cut. And when we look at a picture of the cutting pattern from 18th century sabers, they have cut 1, cut 2, cut 3, cut 4, cut 5, cut 6, cut 7, cut 8. And that's the same cutting pattern that is used in eskrima and a lot of other styles. But the cut 5, 6 are horizontal cuts. And when we look at the picture in the manuscript called the segno, he shows Mezzanas as being these lateral swords that one from either side that stop right about the navel. And with that picture, he has that described as the Mezzanas. The way I like to teach the Mezzana is that it follows the same trajectory as a fendente. Only it goes from a high guard to a middle guard, or a low guard to a middle guard. The trajectory of a fendente is a 70-degree angle that in the text he says enters at the opponent's left eye and goes through his right knee. Not that we'll ever be able to cut all the way through the body, but that's a trajectory. And so if I do that and I come here, that's about a 70-degree angle. And you can see the angle of my quillins that it gives me the protection. When I'm doing this cut, I want to be able to hide my hands and my body behind the sword hilt. So it looks like this. And it's that angle right there that allows me to keep my arms tucked in behind my quillins. The reason I do the fendente and the Mezzana in this trajectory is I've had my fingers broken multiple times in sword fights. I just like that. So I learned how to hide behind my quillins. The 70-degree cut allows me to hide my fingers and my elbows behind my quillins. If I cut one-handed, and this is the angle that's shown in the segno, it's about a 45-degree angle. That would be neck to hip. And I come across at this angle here, or neck to hip here. And there's a physiological reason for the difference between those two cuts. When I'm throwing a fendente with two hands on my sword, my other hand's on my pommel, so therefore my shoulder's brought forward. If the cut comes in, my elbow's behind the quillins. But if I take this hand off, my thumb is no longer safe. Let me do it this way. With a two-handed cut, I have my elbows and my hands hidden behind my quillins. But as soon as this hand comes off, my thumb is no longer safe. If I throw a two-handed cut at 45 degrees or 90 degrees, my quillins do me absolutely no good, and you can just lay your sword directly over my flat, right across my thumb, into my face, into my arm. I'm unable to hide behind my quillins. At 45, because my shoulder's forward, we run into the same problem. You can just lay your sword directly over my quillins and take my thumb. But as soon as I take my left hand off, now this quillin is protecting this thumb because this shoulder's pulled slightly back, and that means this quillin is also protecting this shoulder. Let me do it at this angle. Two-handed, 45-degree cut. You can see the angles, and my sword is not protecting me. But as soon as I take one hand off of my sword, this shoulder comes back, and I am protected. So when I throw a cut, I don't want a 45-degree cut or a 90-degree cut because I'm not protected because of the physiology of my back shoulder. Now we're going to move into the arming sword. And here we have an arming sword. It's a one-handed sword, very simple, has a straight crossguard, wheel pommel, short blade. This is all one-handed. I want to take that 45-degree angle so I can hide my hand and my thumb behind the blade. If I do 70 degrees, when we meet, my thumb is in danger. So this allows me to hide my thumb. I still don't want to do a horizontal cut unless I have control of the opponent's sword. If I have covered, stepped in, and grabbed their sword, a horizontal cut is fine because I have taken control of their sword away from them and they are unable to use it. And it can be from either side, but I'm only going to do that after I've controlled their sword. With the arming sword, I'm going to use those 45-degree cuts that look very similar to the saber cuts of the 19th century because, again, I don't have a lot of protection over my hand. With the one-handed cut, I can do a horizontal cut because I can use it to strike the opponent's sword and drive it away from me. I'm not allowing it to come in over my quillin, but with one hand, I can get better control of the different angles on his blade. And that's going to take us into the schiavona. With the schiavona, we now have a short cutting blade, double-edged blade, one-handed, complex hilt. If you look at this sword and you take away all the fancy things, you've got those straight quillins. It is this sword with a complex hilt wrapped around it, but it still has just these two straight quillins and then all the extra stuff built around for hand protection. With this extra hand protection built here, now I can throw safely horizontal cuts, 45-degree cuts, or in the one-handed sword of Marozzo. In that time period, you have a fendente, which is a straight down cut. And I can get away with those because I have this complex hilt that protects my hand. If I tried to do the fendente with the one-handed sword, the arming sword, you would notice that coming straight down the middle, because my blade is straight at you, I have no protection on my thumb or my knuckles. If we look at that same cut, the fendente of the 16th century with the two-handed sword coming straight down the middle, I have no protection for my thumb and my knuckles. We see this cut a lot with the Japanese sword, the katana. That sword has a different protection for the hands. Instead of being just straight quillins, it's a suba, a round piece of metal that protects the thumb and the knuckles. And because of the suba, I can do this and my thumb and my knuckle is protected by my suba, whereas it is not protected by my quillins. So I need this angle here to protect my knuckles, and this one protects my thumb, as long as I don't hold it like a hammer. There we have the reasoning for why I teach the Mezzana with the two-handed sword as being at 70 degrees. It follows the same trajectory as the fendente versus the more commonly taught 45 or 90 degree cut. In his manuscript, Fiore says the Mezzana goes between the eye and the knee, and I can stop that anywhere I want. But why would I throw a horizontal cut at the knees? But if I throw this trajectory, I can stop at his knee because I did not complete my trip all the way to the ground, thereby doing a fendente, not a Mezzana. So when you're working with your sword, pay attention. Do you have one hand on your sword or two hands on your sword? Do you have a straight quillins, a complex hilt, or a round suba-like guard? If you have two hands with a simple guard, you're going to need to keep an angle on your sword that protects your hands. If you have one hand only, because your back shoulder is no longer connected to it, that's no longer safe, but that is. So pay attention to not just what is shown in the manuscripts, but also what is written in the manuscripts. And remember, pain is the best teacher. Ideally, somebody else's pain. I broke all my fingers multiple times learning this, so you don't need to. You're welcome. I hope this helps. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked what you saw, please share it and hit the notification button and hit all the icons. Do that stuff, whatever it is, and pass it around to other people that you think would enjoy keeping their thumbs and their fingers attached to their hands. Until the next time, everyone, thanks a lot and take care.
Would you like to know more?